Right, back live tonight here in Focus. Last Thursday, City Power disconnected the electricity supply for a government building housing the Pan-African Parliament and a construction company as well. The two collectively owe an unsettled debt of 28 million rand, and it was part of the power utilities' drive to cut power to defaulting Midrand customers owing over 440 million rand. Nqobani Mzizi, Senior Manager for Revenue Enhancement at City Power, joins us now for more on this. Nqobani, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. It was quite shocking for many that the Pan-African Parliament was one of those cited as defaulting, and not a small amount, quite a huge amount. How does it get to that? How does a government and an institution or an establishment like this get to that point without, I'm sure, some interventions along the way and communication and arrangements and so on and so forth?
Well, good evening, Tawa, and good evening to the viewers. Look, I mean, theirs is similar to all the other cases, as I have had the opportunity to engage with you as well as your colleagues around how this all transpired. Of course, it grew over time. But yes, it's a staggering amount and the question is valid. So let me try by all means to answer it. I mean, going to that 28 million, they ended up, you know, playing the court order card on us. And I'll say it's a card because I also want to belabor on that a little bit more, if you permit me to. So when a client, I mean, gives us a court order, one of the instructions of every court order we've seen is that the court will normally rule that we do not disconnect until whatever issues have been resolved. And in this particular instance, it's the same case. So that is why it has grown to that amount. Yes, of course. I mean, it's shocking because it's the Pan-African Parliament. I mean, a very notable institution on the African continent to be at that amount. But we are working on that so that we can recover that and make way make a way with whatever it is that they have raised in that particular court order.
So there are various interventions, or at least, shall I say, levels of disconnection. And how do you determine which one will be applicable to which customer?
So typically we have 3 disconnection levels. The first one being a level 1 is that we would just switch off the circuit breaker that supplies at the pillar box or in a transformer box, wherever it may be. And then we just put a sticker to say that you have been disconnected. And of course, it's after the process that commences with us giving you a call and then sending you a 14-day disconnection notice. And then if the first level you don't come through, we then go and do a second level disconnection, or level 2 as it were, where we would maybe just remove a circuit breaker, okay? So that the first one will trip it, the second one will remove it. The third one will then remove our infrastructure. And with our infrastructure, we're talking about the fuses. If it's a large power customer, if it's a domestic customer, we go back to where you are supplied. In other words, we trace it back to the transformer where it comes from, and then we'll then remove the supply going to the house so that you are unable to reconnect yourself. And those are the 3 type of levels.
Yeah, and what determines, what parameters are used to determine which one you're going to use? I mean, is it just the sheer amount, if it's in the millions, if it's been in default for several years? What determines which one you're going to use?
So in the first one, Thabo, if it's the first time we've come to terminate your service, we'll typically do a level 1. If it's the second time in, and then you'll come either make a payment or make an arrangement, and then we put on your power. And then you then come back, and then you default again, and then we then do a level 2. And then a level 3 is, let's say you then maybe defaulted again for the 3rd time. And in this instance, now we are not even lenient with the acknowledgement of that arrangement that we'll make with you. And then we do a level 3 termination. But also, again, we also weigh on the areas to say, in this area, are customers prone to reconnecting themselves? And in such instances, we normally go for a level 2 or the highest level, that is level 3. And then, I mean, if then customers then decide to reconnect themselves, of course they do at level 1 and level 2, but should they then do it at level 3, I mean, it's even more severe, because, I mean, severe the consequences there to add, because, I mean, if you do that, it means you have intricate knowledge of our infrastructure, and then we then commence with legal proceedings and criminal proceedings as well.
I'm asking that because that's precisely where I'm trying to lead to, because it seems you are beginning to have a rising issue of that particular thing beginning to happen. How are you enforcing compliance, I suppose, with the laws. You're arresting people. How many people are you arresting? Because it is becoming an issue of people who are very familiar with your infrastructure, or at least they know somebody who's familiar with your infrastructure who is reconnecting them.
So, I mean, you'd appreciate that given the magnitude of the debt book sitting at around 9.8 billion at this moment, the debt book is quite, besides it being big in value, it's a large number of customers, right? So how do we manage it is the question with regards to them reconnecting. We'll typically go back and do audits. Within a week, we'll probably go back twice. And then thereafter, if we still see that you're disconnected, we'd proceed to attend to other customers, because we don't have infinite capacity, right? Because when we disconnect a batch of customers that we would have identified for that particular week, we then do the audits that follow the terminations, because in other instances, customers do pay and make arrangements, as I made in the example earlier. And then we'll then move over to the next batch. So if then we do find, I mean, at the end of the month, when we do our reconciliation, we find that, wait a minute, these 500 customers still have not come back. And what are the chances that they are off? Then we'll then go back again and do another sporadic audit around those. And then in most instances, we do find. So to your question, what then do? We build up dossiers. I think we all understand how the law in the land works. I mean, because a person can say, we can find them reconnected, but then the question will always be, who is the person that must be arrested for the reconnection?
Yeah.
Sometimes the landlord say, I've got tenants in here, I never reconnected, even though our contract is with the landlord. Sometimes it's the landlord, I mean, the owner himself who lives in there. But because we have to prove that they're the ones who have done it, we then employ other intelligence measures then to say, after we disconnect, we then try and trap them. The arrest rate, yes, we do have some success stories here and there, but given as I say, the magnitude of the problem and all of that, with regards to that particular stage of arresting and all of that, it's not as high, because the intention of this is not to be draconian, but instead to try and draw people back to come and pay. And that's what we'd like to do, more than getting to that point. But of course, we do arrest some, and we give it to the court, to the evidence that we have, then we leave it to the courts to make a decision.
And with that, of course, then it segues to the next question. How significant are the results? Because many people, when they see Isaac there outside in the police, and they say, City Power is starting again with this PR stunt, because nothing really happens. They switch on. In fact, people themselves in these areas say, it's fine, they can switch off now in the afternoon. By evening, we will be back on.
So you see, the nice thing is with the one that allows for me to speak with you, as in the drives where you see Isaac and the cops and myself as well as part of the teams that go out, is that those ones, we keep a special focus on those. And without giving too much detail away, there are not even a handful who have decided to reconnect themselves, and the process that I outlined is already underway, and we are preparing something to come back to you so that we can communicate. It's by no means a PR stunt, the one that we are doing. And to your question again, what are the successes? In the month of August, we were able to collect 101% of our billing of the previous month of July, and in July we collected just below 100%, which is something that has not been seen in a long time, which means that it's the spin-offs of this project, number one. And number two, we have also intensified the collection there too. The collection element of our revenue management value chain. And it goes hand in hand with this particular drive that we are on to try and communicate and encourage people to say. So yes, there may be those who may be naysayers and say this is a PR stunt, City Power is trying to do this and that, but that's fine. I mean, we can't take that away from them. But the numbers are speaking for themselves. And the debt book for the past 2 months, 3 months, has been at 9.8 billion. In other words, it has not gone up to 10 billion, because it moved from 10, it went down to 9.9. Now it's 9.8. It may be insignificant, but for the fact that we are collecting 100% of what we are billing, it's a step in the right direction, and it's encouraging. And therefore, we just need to continue what we are doing and amplify our efforts even more.
Yeah. The other side of that spectrum is those who are saying, yes, we do want to comply, but the economy is really bad. And, of course, cutting us off, it makes things even worse. Others saying we actually do business, and so we can't even generate the income to even pay the little that we could possibly pay. What is your approach to that?
Well, look, I mean, we welcome all of those customers who if they are unable to honor our policy expectations with regards to making arrangements, that is 50% and 6 months to pay, or 30% down payments and 3 months to pay, we say to them, show us your financials, and then we can have a discussion, sit around the table. And of course, it's also dependent on them having not defaulted on previous AODs, because I think in your household, in my household, I cannot consume more than I'm able to pay in any of the obligations that I may have in my household, right? And I sympathize with businesses in as much as I sympathize with homeowners. But the question will always be, what do you minimize, or what do you use less of, so that you can be able to stretch your rent or what you have to cover all your obligations? Unfortunately, for some reason, unbeknown to us at least, the appetite to pay electricity and municipal and government services at large, one can even go that far, is always the last for customers to want to pay. In certain areas, not all customers. I mean, we do have people who are up to date. So what do we do? I mean, we do try and meet them halfway, but customers then take chances and end up not honoring their end of the bargain, and then it makes it very difficult for everybody involved. So we say, at that moment when you can see that you're struggling, come through, let's have a sit down, because we are lenient. I mean, we are not necessarily, we are lenient to an extent, and we want to accommodate everyone, but we don't want you to come, we will accommodate you, you pull wool over our eyes, and like I explained, we do a level 2, and then you make another arrangement, because at that point we say we're just sticking to the policy, and that's that, because we are not blind to the realities of the country.
Nqobani Mzizi, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Senior Manager, Revenue Enhancement at City Power in Johannesburg. Right, what's making news tonight on In Focus when we continue next?